It's freezing cold, raining, and I don't really want to spend the afternoon watching television. I'm sure there's lots and lots of videos to catch up on, which I want to do this evening. So I thought I'd do a little info vid. So here's your fountains. Here's Trafalgar Square. Let's go in a bit further. Let's get some 3D going. Here's my fourth plinth with the Lammasu. The other three statues here. This is the National Gallery. These buildings over here, on this side here, are so ridiculously far underground. I mean, you can sort of see there. It's got to be about 16 foot. Just about see going down their steps. So yeah, Trafalgar Square. So what got me about it more than anything, apart from the info on the fountains and the lions, but that's for another day, is just how small it is. It's very small, isn't it? You know, for a main public place. It gets absolutely crammed in the, you know, at New Year and when they have these things, gatherings and stuff. Always full of people. They've stopped people feeding pigeons there. But if you look at Horse Guard Parade here, where the Queen does all that sort of marching about thing, trooping the colour and all that sort of stuff. So this is Pall Mall, Buckingham Palace is down here. It's huge compared to piddly little Trafalgar Square. And at the back of the National Gallery, so the National Gallery was built in the 1830s, sorry. And at the back here there's a street called Orange Street, which will be important in a minute. It's Charing Cross. All measurements to London are taken from Charing Cross, and I've noticed it's exactly at the end of the Mall. Here's 1833 map, National Gallery, Trafalgar Square, a couple of the statues, don't know. So the square was originally called Charing. Then it became known as Charing Cross. I've got my cat walking across the laptop now, sorry. She doesn't know what I'm talking to, she's confused. Right, and the nearby underground, the Tube, is still named Charing Cross. So it was the site of the King's Royal Hawks, so, and the Royal Mews. And then the Prince Regent asked John Nash to develop the area. John Nash died actually before it was completed, and you'll find this with a lot of the architects. Even though these things didn't take very long to build most of the time, they were dead before they were finished or went mad. Here's the lions at the foot of Nelson's Column. Some interesting stuff about those as well, but that's for another video. They were added later in 1868. And there's one about the plinths. That plinth, that empty plinth, was empty for like 150 years. And the fountains. So the first fountains at Trafalgar Square were installed as part of its development in the 19th century. So here we go. So this guy found out that the fountains that are there in Trafalgar Square now are second generation, and the originals were shipped off to Canada. So they're supplied by an artesian well sunk to a great depth at the back of the National Gallery. and these were placed in Trafalgar Square in 1845. Okay. So Bradshaw was this guy that went all around everywhere talking about stuff on his travels, and this guy here, found this mention and went for it and had a look. So the original fountains were designed by Charles Barry, a Londoner born in Bridge Street, Westminster, particularly known for his design of the Houses of Parliament. God, these Victorians, I tell you, they were just unbelievable. So they were made of granite, which came from Stirling Hill, a coastal village above Bodham on the North Aberdeenshire coast. And MacDonald and Leslie of Aberdeen built them. And it revolutionised the production of granite monuments. And they became Scotland's most important granite sculptors, with commissions at the highest level. So the fountains were fed with water from an artesian well in Orange Street. These are the old ones. Very, very, very beautiful. And these are the new ones. They're always being sort of like embellished. These are the original ones. This lady took a photograph and said that it's in a state of decrepitude, with only a dribble issuing forth and a very putrid pool. And this one, there it is again. There's a commemoration plaque, and the other one is in Ottawa. So that guy led me on to this guy. Now this guy is a pub quizzer who buys the Illustrated London News, and he got the Illustrated London News of 1845. I'm getting my centuries mixed up. And found out that they were powered by artesian wells, and it was completely replaced in the 1930s when they decided that the artesian wells weren't very good and weren't working properly, and never really lived up to the hype when first switched on. Well, they'd been going for nearly 100 years when they decided to move them. So back to the tunnels. 2 deep shafts were drilled down to the water table, one in Trafalgar Square and one behind the National Gallery, and then linked up deep underground by a fairly sizable 6-foot wide tunnel. Considering that this deep level tube tunnel was constructed some 40 years before the first tube train tunnel, this is quite incredible feat of engineering, isn't it just? That's what we keep saying. So on Tuesday morning last at 7 o'clock, Mr. Barry the architect, attended by the engineers of the above works and other scientific gentlemen with a few members of the government, met in Trafalgar Square to witness the playing of the fountains at various heights and to inspect the engines connected therewith. So they decided that everything was fantastic and they were going to get them going on the Saturday, and probably had a great big load of people in there to see these fountains, driven by pumps from an artesian well. So the wells for supplying the water to the fountains and government offices, and that was the Houses of Parliament and all that lot down there. So there was some pressure, and they certainly got it together, didn't they? Nice pure artesian well water. These are perpendicular borings into the earth, through the impervious to the porous strata, through which the water has percolated and accumulated in large quantities. So, it's an artesian well here. So water goes down there, then you bore down there, and water comes up there. Yeah. Yeah, got that. So the water comes from the rains which fall in the valley of Holmesdale. a district of about 10 miles extent. So a little bit of a description. So here, at the back of Trafalgar Square, there are two wells, one in Orange Street, which I pointed out earlier, and the other in front of the National Gallery. Don't know where that one is. The bores of these wells, to the depth of 175 feet, are the former 6 feet and the latter 4 foot 6 inch in diameter, and these are connected together at the depth of 170 feet by a tunnel 880 foot long and 6 feet in diameter, and capable of containing about 70,000 gallons of water. Below this bore at the Orange Street well is a smaller one to the depth of about 300 feet, whilst that in front of the National Gallery is 390 feet deep. That's so deep. The strata through which the operation of boring has passed will be seen in the accompanying sections. It's not here, I have looked for it, can't find it. So the machinery for working the wells, for throwing the jet and for the supply of the various offices consists of 2 engines, a large Cornish one and a smaller inverted direction engine. So I'll leave a link so that you can see how these pumps. It just seems to me that everything was in place that could have worked, but maybe just didn't work anymore, and they had to reverse engineer to get stuff going again. But it just seems that sometimes things are working perfectly well and they just decided to replace it anyway with the new stuff, their man-made stuff. I just don't understand it. So the wells and tunnel, because this was working well, but they decided to replace it. Hang on. The wells and tunnel, when at rest, will hold about 122,000 gallons of water, and some idea may be formed of the supply of the liquid from the fact that 300 gallons per minute raised for 30 hours in succession lowered the water in the wells by only 50 feet, thus leaving an amount of... I mean, this is incredible, isn't it? It's an excellent quality, soft and pure. So talk about the design, the polished quartz. Oh, its proportions rival the rich flesh-coloured granites of Egypt. Ew. Simple design. Effect on the square is magnificent. Spouts for 10 hours a day. So, yeah. So, it was replaced in the 1930s. So this is them now. And I expect that they have like dials and things that can raise that up. But yeah. And this one is for a tiny little video. It's only a 26-second song from 1933, showing one of the original ones that doesn't spout very well. They said it doesn't. I mean, it looks pretty high to me. I'm sure that they. I mean, that's crazy high. It's Nelson's column. Yeah. So that made me look at this sort of hydraulic engineering and hydropower and drinking water and decorative fountains in Augsburg. So Augsburg's a place in Bavaria. And it's got a really complex system of water management with a lot of water fountains. Not all of them in use anymore either. There's one there. It looks a bit sort of like something that, you know, that the birds bath in now. But back in its day, this place, right from early times, I mean 1346, they had like this massive canal system, and that provided progress as well as drinking water, transport routes for building materials and firewood, powdered grain mills and hammer mills, and water towers and water wheels, and it's just they had at one place, the lower waterworks, they had 7 Archimedes screws and the Machina Augustana that lifted the water. It's just amazing, sort of like... And then in 1879, the towerless waterworks replaced the drinking water system of the then 7 water towers. And the water power provided by the canals supported the early industrialisation of Augsburg, a city far from any coal deposits, and encouraged import. So, canals. And I found this really, really interesting here, because the architectural and technical monuments of water management, which to this day illustrate the technological development stages and the presence of a water knowledge cluster between the late Middle Ages and the Industrial Age. A water knowledge cluster. Buildings and technical installations have not survived, but the technical expertise is documented in the Augsburg archives. Hydrotechnology. So all these, everywhere, you know, there's always these fountains, water mills, windmills. I sometimes wonder if maybe there wasn't more of a water system here. So, Augsburgs. So, back to Trafalgar Square, and this lady here has got a blog, and these are tunnels under Trafalgar Square. Now, these were allegedly dug during the construction of the Jubilee line, which I don't believe a word of it. It's been here a while. This one here is dated 1964. The Jubilee line was done in 1979. I think they, the far end is now blocked off, ending roughly underneath the 4th plinth. My God, that 4th plinth. It's haunting me. Right, cast iron plates line. Noticeable curve. It's not a navigation error, but a deliberate detour to avoid Nelson's column, or what's underneath it. And people here just... Shush! This is interesting here. Sorry about that. So, okay then. I don't know if that's given you any food for thought, but I didn't think that there were artesian wells going to a depth of 395 feet below Trafalgar Square. And I just want to show you this before we go. Right, remember these Landseer's lions? Well, they were added in 1868, but then I found this map on Gallica. I wasn't even looking for this, I was just looking at old maps, you know. 1851, yeah. Trafalgar Square. Actually, it's not all that important on the map. I'm trying to do this one-handed. I know exactly where to go to find it now. I'm starting to find my way around London at last. So there it is, yeah. Charing Cross, Trafalgar Square, National Gallery, all up and running on a map in 1851. But Landseer's lions were put up in 1868, and this map's 1851, and here's Nelson's column with 4 lions clearly sort of visible at the bottom. And I know that the drawings might have been added onto the map later. You know, an illustrator might have come and added them. Yeah? But this thing here is a horse-drawn omnibus. And here's one. And it's quite a similar design. That one's from 1828, so it's 30 years before. That one's less ornate, but I think that one is French, so it will be more ornate, I guess. No, I hope you enjoyed it, and you might get a little bit of, I don't know, inspiration to go and look up hydraulics or hydropower, and because it's going to be a connection here somewhere. And